Following the initial bombshell report about Donald Trump's taxes that was published in the New York Times, there was a second follow-up story that was released. This time, it detailed Trump's history of epic business and financial failures, despite given all the advantages in the world, including his, basically a second lease at financial life because of The Apprentice. And so this is interesting. Now, the New York Times, they write, quote, months after the inaugural episode of The Apprentice, back in January 2004, Trump filed an individual tax return reporting about $89.9 million in net losses from his core businesses for the prior year. So that would be 2003. The red ink spilled from everywhere, even as American television audiences saw him as a savvy business mogul with the Midas touch. Now, of course, we know Donald Trump to have the reverse Midas touch. Everything that he touches falls to shit. All right. So there we go. 12 years later, the image of the self-made, self-saved mogul beamed to the national consciousness. Again, this is the New York Times. They love to get all flowery with their shit. Would help fuel Mr. Trump's improbable election to the White House. But the story of The Apprentice is now now well known. The president's tax returns reveal another twist that has never been truly told. How the popularity of his alter ego rescued him and provided him a financial lifeline to reinvent himself after becoming, of course, broke. Now, all right. So it turns out, according to the Times, that Trump's genius was not running a company. It was making himself famous and monetizing that fame. So really, overall, he's good at playing a pretend billionaire. He's not a billionaire for real. He just plays one on TV. He's an actor. He's a sideshow, a clown, a fraud. And that's who he is. And he's good at fake news. But it turns out he is so good at bullshitting people that he ended up actually making about $400 million from it, which is just amazing. Look, if I could make $400 million bullshitting people for a living, what am I doing here, honestly? No, I'm kidding. Of course, I wouldn't do that. But anyway, according to the tax records analyzed by the New York Times, they were able to place a value on Trump's celebrity. While the returns show that he earned about $197 million directly from The Apprentice over a 16-year run, roughly in line with what he, of course, had claimed, they revealed an additional $230 million from the fame associated with it, mostly due to branding. Now, look, this is actually smart, right? You know, if you have a brand, you monetize the shit out of it. That makes total sense. And yet somehow, making that much money from The Apprentice, you don't really have to do anything, but also from the branding deals, and yet somehow he still is broke because he's a moron. All right, anyway, so now where did he get a lot of his deals? Now this is interesting. It turns out that he received an $8,768,330 paid to him by ACN. What's ACN? It turns out that it is a multi-level marketing company that has been accused of taking advantage of investors. So what's ACN is a Ponzi scheme. It's a pyramid scheme. Sorry. That's what it is. It's a pyramid scheme. That's... look, there's only a couple people that make money off pyramid schemes, and they're always at the top. Nobody else does. That's the whole purpose of a pyramid scheme. So, hey, and you know what? It's one of the first times I personally ever heard of anybody making money off a pyramid scheme, so there you go. $8 million. Now, if you invested in that scheme, well, I feel bad for you, because you're not very smart. You're a sucker. All right. Now, Trump also received about $50,000 from the Lifetime channel for what they called a juicy nighttime soap. That never happened. $5,000 in net income from a short-lived mortgage business Oh, could you imagine? Trump homes. Ugh. All right, more. $15 million from Serta, licensing his name to a line of Serta mattresses. So I'm pretty sure that they were overpriced and tacky as hell, but that's what it is. Actually, we've got more information about this. According to the wiki, Trump Home, not Trump Homes, Trump Home, was launched in July 2007 with 2 furniture lines manufactured by Lexington Home Brands. A third furniture line was made available in 2008, at which point the brand was available in more than 18 international territories. A year later, the company partnered with Serta to produce mattresses under the Trump Home name. A line of Trump-branded tabletop crystal, manufactured by a Slovenian company, was launched in 2010. In 2011, Lexington chose not to renew its licensing agreement with Trump Home. 2 years later, Trump Home entered a partnership with Doria International to manufacture Trump-branded furniture. Serta ended its affiliation with Trump Home after Donald Trump described Mexican immigrants as rapists while announcing his 2016 presidential campaign. Lifestyle, a Dubai-based retailer of Trump Home products, also ended their affiliation with the company in 2015 after Trump announced his plan to ban all Muslims from entering the United States. Again, it makes sense because Dubai. And other retailers have discontinued sales of Trump Home products since Trump was elected in November of 2016. So all those deals, by the way, and this is what's important, they're gone. They're no longer sources of revenue for Donald Trump. So he's not making any more money. Understandable. He's not making money. He's broke. He's broke. All right, there's more. The newspaper also reported that Mr. Trump was not terribly discriminating, no shit, in his choice of endorsements. He put his name on everything from Trump steaks, which you read the reviews for it, they're hilarious. Vodka. Yeah, all the Russia gators, their heads explode as soon as you hear vodka. Oh my God, Trump vodka! And then a board game, which sounds boring, and cologne, which probably smells bad. I'm just saying. Anything to make that money, which of course makes sense, right? But here's the thing. His name is all he had. He never really made anything. There were no tangible goods really made by Donald Trump or the Trump organization. It was all about marketing his name out to people. And it's all licensing. Turns out, guy's not a genius. Anybody would have done the same thing. The problem with Trump is that his lavish spending and his investments were all terrible. Were really, really dumb. He would dump all this money into casinos and somehow they would go bankrupt. And he would put money in golf courses, which also would take up a lot of money and end up in losses. Yeah. And here's the other thing, okay? He personally has, to show how much of a not stable genius he is about this, right? He has $421 million in personally guaranteed loans. Those are going to come due within the next couple of years. Now, if you were wealthy and your name was good and you were making a ton of money, your businesses, your organization was super solvent, well, then you wouldn't have to personally guarantee loans. But he does, and it shows that as far as his big business acumen goes, he's got none. Trump's a terrible businessman. And the golf courses that he owns are hemorrhaging cash. Most of Mr. Trump's core enterprises, according to the Times, reported losing millions, if not tens of millions of dollars, year after year. And yet, he continues to live his fabulous lifestyle. Why? Because he's living on borrowed money. Borrowed money and tax avoidance. And that's the thing. He's a fraud and he's a cheat. Because look, in order to get these loans, okay, because most American banks, by the way, will not give Donald Trump a loan at all. But the ones that do, Deutsche Bank, for example, Not again, has to be foreign banks, right? Deutsche Bank being the laundromat of the world. He has to inflate his assets. So he overinflates his assets so that he can qualify for these big loans. And then when it comes tax time in America, he'll deflate his loans and he'll claim tons and tons of losses. Again, I believe he claimed at some point over $900 million in total losses, making it so that he didn't have to pay taxes for over a decade. And then when he did have to pay taxes in 2016, 2017, he paid $750. And that's it. $750. You and I have paid more in taxes. Okay, as regular workers, regular people. Hell, there are people that pay for their insulin more money than Donald Trump's paid in a year in taxes. I mean, come on. Come on. And so, look, he is, deflating these assets to not pay those taxes. That's tax fraud. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Now, one more thing that I found amusing from this article. When the Times reached out to make sure that they got the facts correct, okay, White House spokesperson Judd Deere did not dispute any specific facts for the story. Instead, they called the entire thing fake news. Okay, but what's wrong with this article? To point out something that's factually incorrect. Well, they couldn't point to anything. They couldn't do any of it. Okay, point to something we did wrong. Fake news. It's all fake news. It's all fake. It's all fake. No. 100% real. They got him. They got him. That said, will MAGA care? No. Hardcore MAGA guys, they don't give a shit. They'll be like, fake news. Or they'll also maybe say, Donald Trump's a genius for avoiding taxes. And then they'll go on to rail against undocumented immigrants because they believe they don't pay taxes. They're not a very consistent bunch. Okay. This guy, look, he's a con man, and anybody who continues to believe in him is a sucker. And of course, they continue to prove how much, of a sucker they are by sticking with the biggest con man to ever have ascended into the halls of power.